In this presentation, we will discuss a prison riot that broke out in Attica. We will also discuss the United States Penitentiary in Atlanta. Attica is a 2,253 inmate capacity maximum security prison. It was built in 1931 and it is located in western New York. The facility's population as of April 12, 2011 is 2,152 inmates, with a median age of 38.4 years old. One of the most controversial prison riots in U.S. history occurred 40 years ago. An historical panel of eyewitnesses and survivors of the Attica uprising met to help heal old wounds. This is what they had to say.
But one of the most controversial prison riots in U.S. history occurred 40 years ago. Now an historic panel of witnesses and survivors of the Attica uprisings is meeting to help heal old wounds. News 4's Al Vaughters was at today's conference and joins us with the latest. Al?
Jackie, 43 people were killed in the Attica uprising, the deadliest prison riot in U.S. history. The state paid out more than $24 million in settlements to the families of inmates and corrections officers that were killed. And the UB Law School is holding a 3-day conference to see how that has changed New York's prisons. Raw emotions still seething from the nation's deadliest prison riot 40 years ago. The inmates took over the prison on September 9, 1971, until state police retook Attica 4 days later, killing inmates and corrections officers who were taken hostage. Melvin Marshall was only 19, in prison on a parole violation, and tearfully recalled the first 2 prisoners to go down, one who attacked the state police, the second who tried to stop him.
Saved a lot of hostages from being hurt because Tommy had it in his mind that he was going to kill as many people as he could before they killed him.
Former corrections officer Michael Smith was shot 4 times by state police, but was saved by an inmate and a fellow officer.
The correction officer reached down, pushed the trooper's gun up out of the way into the air, and said, "Don't shoot, he's one of ours."
That same trooper then turned his shotgun on the inmate who saved Smith earlier from other prisoners.
And Noble said, "Mike, tell him who I am and what I did for him." And I said, "Don't shoot, his name's Don Noble, and he saved my life."
D. Quinn Miller's father, Bill Quinn, was the only corrections officer killed by inmates. 10 other COs were killed by state police. Miller leads a group of corrections officer survivors called the Forgotten Victims of Attica, who won a $12 million out-of-court settlement from the state. Inmate survivors received their settlement earlier.
Now, we are the employees of the state of New York who, in 1971, were very expendable. Frankly, everybody was expendable in that yard that day.
Now, many of Attica's survivors believe to this day the carnage could have been avoided if then Governor Nelson Rockefeller had given negotiators a little more time to reach a peaceful settlement.
It was the bloodiest prison conflict since the Civil War. There were numerous causes for the riot. Tensions were already high as the prison was extremely overcrowded and inmates were being denied basic sanitation needs. They were usually limited to 1 shower a week and 1 roll of toilet paper per month. Additionally, there were allegations of racism by the prison's all-white guards against a 54% black population and a significant Puerto Rican minority. On September 13, 1971, a 4-day rebellion of over 1,200 inmates at the Attica State Correctional Facility in Wilcox, upstate New York, ended after Governor Nelson Rockefeller ordered almost 600 state troopers to storm the prison. Even though the raid took only 10 minutes, when one could finally see, it was immediately clear that the price of retaking this facility by force had been strategically high. Across the facility were bodies, 29 inmates and 10 hostages lay dead, and scores of other men lay so severely wounded that they were assumed dead. As inmates James Osborne recalled, I could see all this blood just running out of the mud and water. That's all I could see. This is a picture of L.D. Murphy. He was the spokesman for the Attica prisoners. He was one of the prisoners that was killed September 13, 1970. He was 21 years old. This is the speech that he gave to the government. We are men. We are not beasts, and we do not intend to be beaten or driven as such. The entire prison populace, that means each and every one of us here, has set forth to change forever the ruthless brutalization and disregard for the lives of the prisoners here and throughout the United States. What has happened here is but the sound before the fury of those who are oppressed. We will not compromise on any terms except those terms that are agreeable to us. We call upon the consensus citizens of America to assist us in putting an end to this situation that threatens the lives of not only us, but each and every one of us. I'm going to show you pictures of the raid that was happening during I'll start from the beginning, and now I'll show you pictures all the way to the end of the raid. Here's the state troopers getting ready to go into Attica. Here are the prisoners in Attica. Here's what the state troopers see whenever they enter Attica. On the left is the hallway, as you can tell, as they were throwing stuff off and throwing stuff out of their cells. On the right is the yard. They were tearing up their own stuff to make a statement. Here's the aftermath of the 10-minute raid. On the left is the bodies piled up. As you can tell, it was kind of extreme. On the left is a headline on the front page of the newspaper on Times Union Capital Land Great Regional Newspaper. 37 die in attack battle as assault ends rebellion. The population today in Atlanta, Georgia's prison is 2,472 total inmates, 1,963 inmates at the USP and FDC, 509 inmates at the camp. It's an all-male inmate. Here is an aerial view of the prison. 1920s and 1930s, corruption and fraud became a concern. Through investigation, it was found that prisons, officials, and even the chaplain were taking bribes from the inmates. The Atlanta Division of Prisons was closed in May 1930, and responsibility over investigation in Georgia was shifted to a newly created division in Birmingham, Alabama. The change was short-lived. In April 1935, the Atlanta office was reopened. Gary Stephen Christ and Ruth Eisman IV kidnapped a 20-year-old college student named Barbara Jane Mackle from Decatur, Georgia. While she was there recovering from the flu, buried her alive in a shallow grave with food, water, and a flashlight, and demanded a ransom of $500,000 for the revenge. They were later caught and sent to prison. Gary Stephen Chris spent the rest of his life in Georgia State Penitentiary. In the summer of 1979, the murder of 14-year-old Edward Hope Smith, who lived in southwest Atlanta, marked the start of a string of killings known as the Atlanta Child Murderers. All victims of these killings were African American. By May 1981, some 29 children, teens, and young adults had been murdered. During a stakeout near a bridge where many bodies had been found, FBI found Wayne Williams driving off in his car, and after investigating, which included air and fiber analysts from the car, concluded that he was the serial killer and was sentenced to prison. He spent the rest of his life in Georgia State Penitentiary. Atlanta prison riots. On November 10, 1987, the U.S. State Department announced that Cuba had agreed to reinstate a 1984 accord that would permit the repatriation of up to 2,500 Cuban nationals. Included would be Cubans who had fled into the 1980 model boat lift, but who once released on immigration parole had been convicted of a crime and were now detained in one of the two federal prisons. 3 days after the announcement, the detainees seized control of the U.S. Penitentiary in Atlanta. Their principal demand was that they not be repatriated to Cuba. The uprising lasted 11 days, involved more than 100 hostages, and burned down a substantial portion of the facility.